So our learning goal today says I can solve algebraic equations with negative coefficients. Well, those won't be the only kind we'll be solving, but that's going to be kind of like, we want to make sure that we understand what we do when we have negative coefficients in the equation. So let's start by reviewing what a coefficient is. Okay, I'm not going to just tell you what it is, you're going to tell me what it is. The coefficient is the number, the variable is being, what do you think fill in the blank is there? What's the coefficient? Sylvia? Yeah, multiplied by, that's right. It is the number, the variable is being multiplied by. So when we are looking at the variable term in an equation, that coefficient is an important piece. And so we have to be able to recognize it and say, what is that coefficient? So in the first 4 problems here, all we're going to do is we're not going to solve these equations. We're going to tell the coefficient in each equation. So I would like you, first of all, based on that definition, I would like you right now to see if you can fill in those 4 blanks. It's going to be a number. The number, the variable, is being multiplied by. So go ahead and fill in the blanks for 1 through 4 on your notes handout. Everyone. We'll erase if we have to. And remember how in algebra sometimes there are what we call invisibles that you can place there if you don't want them to be invisible anymore. Everybody to put down some sort of answers. Right. And then I'll take 4 different volunteers to go in and fill in a blank up there. Like he is going to do the first one for us. Okay, who wants to be next? Fill in the blank. Don't change yours, just keep working.
Keep trying to put something down.
Yeah, we're not moving on until everybody does, so just go after it. Nobody's taking a grade right now. You want your paper? Sure. There you go. This is a look at and write problem. There is no solving going on here. Should be no solving going on. And thank you, Sylvia, who's going to be our next volunteer. Anybody else want to try? Need a volunteer for number 2, a volunteer for number 3. I still need somebody for number 2 and for number 3. You're a smaller group today, you're going to have to step up to the plate.
Read over the definition again. What is a coefficient?
Arlie can't do it because she's not done yet, so I can't pick on her. Derek, can I convince you to do what you want? You don't have to be ready. I promise I'm not taking anything away from you or ruining your life. I promise not to do that. I'm a grandma. Grandmas don't do that, do they? No. need one more volunteer. Thank you, Derek, for being so kind to go up there. Anna, you think you got number 3 for us? No? You don't have anything filled in yours? She has anything filled in? The other one? Verse 2, okay, yeah, we need number 3. How about you, Sam? Do you got number 3? Okay, why don't you go put what you have, please. Okay, thank you. Okay. So, let's go back to the definition. The number, the variable is being multiplied by. So in number 1, what's the variable? It's just x. It's just x. The variable is a letter, right? Am I right about that? Is a variable a letter? Is that the definition of a variable in algebra? Okay, if a variable is a letter, then in number 1, just the x is the variable. So then, what is x being multiplied by is its coefficient. So Sylvia says it's -1. And she's right. That negative sign in front of that x means there's an invisible 1 between that x and that negative sign. Would you just write that down below it? It's really been cleaned up, I call it. It's been cleaned up. That is not how we will see it written because they've cleaned it up, but that's really what's going on there is there's a -1x. So x is being multiplied by -1. Good job, Sylvia. Okay, number 2, what's our variable? X. So the only thing we need to zero in on right now is the x term in this problem. So I'm going to highlight that x. Okay, is x being multiplied by -19? Is x being multiplied by -19? Or in other words, if I wrote the equation saying that the coefficient is -19, it would look like this. Do you think that's the same thing? Is that the same equation? No, it's not, is it? So we're probably gonna have to change this one. Okay, so what do you think we could change it to? What do you think it is? No, Sylvia, I gotta make sure they're getting it. I know we can get it. Good job. What do you think it should be? Thank you, Derek, for putting that up there for us. Sierra? 17? So in other words, now I could write the equation like this. 18 equals 17x. In other words, there's an invisible 17 there. Can we do that? No. The only numbers that are invisible when they're in front of a variable are 1s. So I don't think we want 17 either. In fact, I think some of you are solving it. You're looking for what x should be equal to. Is that the definition for coefficient, what the variable is equal to? No. It's the number the variable is being multiplied by. So let's try again. What do you think? Hayden? You keep thinking it's 1. In other words, we could do this and we would do something that's okay. Can we put a 1 there? Can we put an invisible 1? Can we replace it? Absolutely. This is the same thing. Will you write that below that equation? 18 equals 1x plus 1 is the same thing as 18 equals x plus 1. Okay, now you should be starting to feel a little more confident that you can do this. I want you to try 3 and 4 again. Try 3 and 4 again. Because I'm going to tell you right now that what's up there right now, they're not going to be able to stay. So I'm going to erase them. Sorry to the people who put them up there. And now do I have any free volunteers? Go ahead, Sam. Okay, anybody volunteer for number 4? I know, Sylvia, you just can't stand it. Can you go for it? So go. You got it. You can do it. I can't shut you down always, right? Okay. How do you feel, people? Do you think we can agree with these ladies? In number 3, what's the variable? What's the variable in number 3? Y. The variable is y. Just the y, not the negative sign in front of it. So we can write this slipping back in that invisible 1 between the negative sign and the y. So would you do that, please? That's really what that says. So Sam's got it. And what's the variable in number 4? Class, what is the variable in number 4? X. It's the letter. This is the easy part of algebra, just claiming the letter. And is the variable being multiplied by -2? Yes, it is. So Sylvia's got the right answer there. And this one, there's no other way to write it. That one did not have anything invisible, did it? It was right there. It says -2x. That means -2 times x. Okay, so those are the 4 answers we should have. Okay, this is huge, that we can identify coefficients for lots of things we're going to do from here on out. So you have to have an understanding of what these mean, okay? Questions? Remarks? Highlights? Did you learn anything? Or did you know it all before? Still making that grin on your face. Okay, number 5. Solve the equations and check your answer. So we're going to solve equations, and we know, like, let's pretend for this first one that we have algebra tiles. Let's just pretend we do. They've been taken down to another classroom for a while. 3m plus 6 equals 0. So on one side of our equation, we would have what? How would we represent 3m? Sylvia? Using those, the longer rectangle x tiles, right? We'd have 3 of those. Okay, what else would be over there with them? The 6 positive, what? Little unit tiles, right? Yeah. Okay, so the 6 tan unit tiles, the little square ones. Okay, is that all that would be on that side? And what would be on the other side? Do we have a 0 in algebra tiles? Well, we do, but do we need to put anything there, maybe? Could we put a 0 here? Just for the fun of it, if we wanted to? Yeah. Or we could just leave it blank and say there's nothing there. It's 0. It's nothing. Okay, well, remember when we did these a few days ago, when we had to solve them, we said, is there anything that can be combined, put together because they're like terms? So think about those 3 x tiles and those 6 unit tiles. Are they like terms? Can they be put together and somehow become like 9 or something? No, they can't, can they? Rectangles don't match little squares, do they? Okay, so then we're going to say, well, then it's ready to solve. I'm ready to do whatever I have to do on, what I do on one side, I have to do on the other side. Caden, what do you want me to do? Add -6 to each side. Could you explain why we're going to add -6 to each side, Caden? Yeah, we need to zero out that +6. So if we add a -6 to a +6, these guys will zero out. It's kind of like, well, to wipe them away from our board, our table. And then we would say, okay, well, we still have those 3 M tiles, we'll call them. They're still left. And now we just got to decide what would we have on that other side since we had nothing. And we put 6 negative unit tiles over there. What do we have? Do we have 0? What do we have? -6. We have -6. Okay? What's the coefficient? What's the coefficient in this? We just did 4 problems. What's the coefficient? What is the variable being multiplied by? 3. The coefficient is 3. Okay, well here's the deal. That coefficient tells us how many equal groups we need to divide into, or in other words, it basically says what do we need to divide by. So what do we need to divide by? 3. Okay, so next move is going to be divide each side into 3 equal groups, or in other words, just divide by 3. Harley, what do we have now? -2. Where's that at? On the other side. So the other side being the left or the right? The right side, okay. And what do we have on the left side, Harley?
Just M.
Just M. Okay, once it is a positive variable, positive 1, now when the coefficient is 1, not -1, but when the coefficient is 1, we get to say we have solved it. It is our solution. So would you circle that and put solution behind it? Or beside it? Somewhere. And now we're going to check it. How do we check it? Do you remember that? Kind of, Caden?
So you'll write both stuff in and you'll put 3 parentheses and you get
Okay, so let's, well, yeah, times -2. Okay, so let's write the word check so we know what we're doing in our notes here. And let's write the equation that we just solved. How it started. And then Caden says we're going to write it with substituting -2 in for the M. So he says use parentheses because that shows multiplication, right? That's one way to show multiplication. Or you can use the multiplication dot, right? Are we solving? Are we going to do the same thing to both sides? No, we are checking. So now we just do the arithmetic. We work our way down until we get a number, single number on one side, a single number on the other, and we see if it's true. So what should we do first here on the left side? Multiply or add? Multiply. 3 times -2, class, is? -6. Oh, what relationship do -6 and 6 have? What are they called? Opposites. What do opposites add up to? 0. Does it check? And we have a good solution. It checks. Okay. Questions? Did you write all those steps? Because that's going to be what you need to start doing to solve these equations when we don't use algebra tiles, okay? Okay, let's move on to number 6 then. Anybody want to share with me what the coefficient is? What's the coefficient? -2. X is being multiplied by -2. So that's just, like making sure we think about that. Now let's go and say, is there anything I can do that I just do on one side to make this equation ready to solve? Okay? But now you're talking about solving. When we start doing the same thing to both sides, we're solving. I'm asking if we can get it ready. Do we need to do anything to get it ready to solve? No, it's just like the last one. There's nothing to do to get ready, so we are ready to solve. That's the do the same thing to both sides. And Caden says, let's divide both sides by -2. Why are we dividing by -2? But why did we choose to divide by, I know you want the answer to be -5, huh? Hannah? Because that's the coefficient. We're always going to divide by the coefficient. Good job. We're always gonna divide by the coefficient, because now we kind of think of it like algebra tiles. Now it's a little harder to say, how do you divide it into negative two equal groups, right? But, so what we're doing is we're dividing by the coefficient. And what happens when we divide something by itself? What happens? What do you get? You get 0? Okay, it's 1. So this really just becomes an x. And what is 10 divided by negative 2? 5? A positive divided by a negative is a negative. Okay. Do we have a solution? Can we circle it? Okay. Solution. Some of you, when I'm correcting your stuff, it's really hard for me to find where your answers are. Okay, let's do a check problem. We think we have the answer, then we should be ready to check it. We're going to write down the equation that we solved. We're going to substitute our solution in. This time I'm going to, just for the fun of it, I'm going to show it with a multiplication dot to show that you can also do it that way. Or you can use parentheses like we did in the last one. When I'm doing these, I say to myself, I got a negative times a negative. My answer should be positive. And 2 times 5 is 10. So this is a positive 10 on this side. True statement? True statement. We're good. We got a good answer. Okay. Questions? Okay, you decide how we're going to start the next one. Number 7. We're going to start the next one. Is it ready to solve? That's the first question you ask yourself. And if it is ready to solve, okay, Marlene, enough. And if it is ready to solve, what are we going to do to both sides first? Is it ready to solve? Okay? So that means we're ready to do the same thing to both sides. What's that going to be? Do what? Divide by what? You know what? This one might be a good one to do this to. Put the invisible part of the coefficient in there. What's the coefficient on x? Negative 1. I think this would be a great one to say, you know what? Let's give it the name it had before it got cleaned up. Because now we can clearly see that we're going to divide by what? 1? Negative 1. The coefficient. We're going to divide by the coefficient. Coefficient is negative 1, so we divide by negative 1. X equals 8 divided by negative 1. Negative 8. A positive divided by a negative is a negative, and 8 divided by 1 is negative 8. Well, that was easy to solve. Solution, that is. And now we will do a check. Negative x equals 8. Just write it just like that. I'm going to show you what we're going to do. I want you to have a special way of thinking about this, okay? Okay, we're going to substitute in, and I'm going to say this time we're going to use parentheses. We're going to substitute in for our x. Oh, we didn't get negative 8, we got, yeah. Oh yeah, we did get negative 8. We're going to substitute negative 8 in, and all the rest of the equation stays the same. Okay, now what do we do? Here's what we're gonna start to think. One of the things we're gonna do with a negative sign like this, okay? That negative sign can be also said the opposite of. The opposite of. So, what is the opposite? Remember, like a subtraction sign? The opposite of. What's the opposite of negative 8? Positive 8. So this becomes positive 8, and we have positive 8 on the other side, it checks. So what could be like a little shortcut thing you can kind of remember? You can say to yourself, all I have to do, if I can't remember to say the opposite of, what could I say? A double negative makes a positive. Double negative makes a positive. It's kind of like a shortcut. Okay, now we're going to do a word problem. Remember, there are going to be lots of these this week. Okay, write an algebraic equation to solve the problem. Determine if your answer is reasonable. So in other words, we're not going to do check problems, but instead we're going to say, does this even make sense that I should get an answer like this? So we have Carla and Jaden who are friends. Carla's 2 years younger than Jaden. When their ages are combined, they add up to 26 years. How old is Carla? How old is Jaden? Do you think there's any, like, information in there we can cross out? Is there anything we should circle? Caden? Pardon? How old is Carla? What should we do with that? Cross it out or circle it? Circle it. Okay, we're going to circle how old is Carla. That's one of our unknowns. And Sierra?
Carla is 2 years younger than Jaden.
Okay, so should we underline that? Remember, we
Honor.
underline that because that's not the question. The question is what we circle. So Carla is 2 years younger than Jaden. Okay, anything else? Sam?
How old is Jaden?
How old is Jaden? It looks like they got 2 questions for us this time. What else? Sylvia? Okay. Ages are combined, they add up to 26 years. Okay, that's important. Aiden? Yeah, you know, we're not saying they can't be friends anymore, we're just saying that doesn't matter in the realm of solving it, right? Okay, so we kind of pretty much taken care of everything up there, haven't we? Okay, now, here's what we're going to do. You always want to avoid, always hear me on this, you always want to avoid assigning 2 different variables in a problem. You always want to try and keep it to 1 variable, and I mean like all x's or all y's, but not both x's and y's in the same problem. You only want to do that when you absolutely have to, okay? So we're going to try to set up an algebraic equation using only 1 variable. So, if Carla's 2 years younger than Jaden, whose age seems to be kind of in control here? Carla's age or Jaden's? Jaden's. So let's let Jaden's age be our variable. Jaden is X years old. Well, if Jaden is X years old, how old is Carla? Okay, and how could we write that as an algebraic expression? 2x? Does it say she's twice as old as Jaden? No, it says she's what? 2 years younger. So give me an example of, like, throw out an age for Jaden just for the fun of it. Zoe, how old do you want Jaden to be? You want Jaden to be 16. Okay, well if Jaden is 16, then how old would Carla be? 14. She'd be 14, wouldn't she? Okay, so, how did you get that 14? What did you just do? You subtracted 2 from Jaden's age, didn't you? Okay, well Jaden's age is how much again? No, now we're going back to our problem. We don't know how old they are. How old did we say Jaden is in the problem? X. Well, we need to take 2 away from Jaden's age to get Carla's age, so what would we write? Say it out loud. Say it out loud. Not 2 minus x. You didn't take 2 minus Jaden's age. You did x. You took Jaden's age and you minus 2 from it. Jaden's age, take away 2 is Carla's age. Jaden's age is x. And it says right here that Carla's age and Jaden's age add up to 26 years. Or in other words, I've written our sentence for us that we can now replace with an algebraic equation. Carla's age, what are we gonna write? X minus 2. And Jaden's age, add up to, so let's put our addition. Jaden's age, what are we gonna put? X. And equals 26. Okay, so there's our equation. Now we're going to solve it. But before we solve it, the first question we always ask is there anything I can do to get it ready to solve? Well, first of all, there's subtraction in this, so what do? Paikia? Add the opposite. So we're going to first of all change this to x plus a negative 2 plus an x equals 26. Is there anything else we should do before we solve? Is there anything else we can do on that long side, on that left side? What do you think we could do? 0? Put the x's by each other. They like each other. They're like terms. So put them beside each other. Because if they are like terms, that means we get to call them a group. We get to combine them. What's an x plus another x? 2x. Anything else we're going to do before we solve it? Caden, what are you trying to do already, Caden? Solve. Is there anything else we can do before we start solving it? Yes or no? No. Okay, then Caden, I'm going to let you have your way. We're going to solve. And he says we're going to add 2 to both sides. Because why? Yeah, we need to zero these guys out. 2x says get out of here. So we have to add 2 to make that happen. So now we have that 2x is all by itself like it wants. And 26 plus 2 is 28. Harley? Now you divide both sides by 2. Okay, each side gets divided by 2 because that's the what? What is 2? What is 2? Coefficient. The coefficient. So we now have x because we divided by x's coefficient. And what's 28 divided by 2? 0?
14.
14. Who's 14? This is Jaden. Okay, let's just put that behind here. That's Jaden. Okay, so if that's Jaden, how are we going to get Carla's age? We're going to subtract 2. So we're going to say x take away 2, which is 14 take away 2, which is 12. That's Carla. Does our answer seem reasonable? Give me a reason why. Why? Harley, what's the other?
Because 12 is 2 years. It's 2 below.
So Carly is 2 years younger than Jaden in this situation. Okay, that's a good. That's a good thing. What else? What other reason is reasonable? Ikea?
They both add up to 26.
Yeah, 14 and 12. Those two ages do add up to 26. So we're going to say then that we're safe to say that Carla is. Remember, we write sentences. Carla is 12 years old. Let's make it all one. And Jaden is 14 years old. Are they still friends? Yeah, they're still friends, even though we crossed it out, right? Okay. Questions? You guys should be getting good at these word problems pretty soon, right?